Hi, in this video I want to talk about creating an album in the gallery. In this gallery you will see that there are no albums created yet. Creating an album is a 5-step process. In step 1 we will prepare all the images that we want to upload into an album. In step 2 we will create a folder where we will store our images. In step 3 we will upload the images into that folder. In step 4 we'll be creating the album from those images, and in the final step we will click on the images to view them. Now let us talk about preparing images, which is our first step. Generally, when we take images with our camera or our phones, we find that the physical dimensions of these images exceed 3000 by 2000 pixels. Also, the file sizes of these images exceed 3 megabytes and sometimes 5 or 6 megabytes per image. What are the problem with these dimensions and these file sizes? Images which are many megabytes in size generally load very slowly on web pages. Of course, it also takes up a lot of space, and generally space does not come very cheap. So the ideal situation would be to reduce our image dimensions to something more reasonable. Now, a width of 800 pixels width, it could be any height. Normally, if you've got a landscape, it will be 800 by 600. Portrait images, it will be 800 wide by, let's say, 900 or let's say 1000 high. Now, those sizes are quite acceptable. It is big enough so you can see it clearly on your computer screens. Of course, if you want an image with a little bit bigger, then a maximum of 1024 pixels should be adhered to. Now, there are many applications which are free of charge that you can use to resize images. I have made a video to resize an image before using it on a website where I'm using Irfan View. Enough said about image sizes. Step 2 would be to go to the Media Manager page. If you want to know more about how to work intensively with the Media Manager page, there's also a video called How to Use the Media Manager page that you should watch. First things we have to do is we have to decide on our folder structure. A folder would equate to an album. Try and use meaningful names for folders, which are doubling for album name. That will make it far easier, or much easier, to manage the albums later. Good practice would be to create a folder called Gallery. Under that folder we will create all the albums or subfolders for our albums. Now, in this area we will create our folder, so all we're going to do is we're going to click in that field and add our gallery folder. If I click on the plus, there we have our gallery. Now, under our gallery folder we are going to create subfolders which will be in which we will create our albums. So let's click on our gallery folder. You can now see our gallery folder is our current folder. Under that we must now create a folder name for our first gallery, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it Bowling Images. I click on that. This would be our gallery. Images will be contained in that folder. Now the next step we have to do, step number 3, is to upload our images into this album. So the first thing we have to do is we have to open the folder by clicking on the name. So as you can see, we're now in our bowling images folder. And now we have to choose images to upload into that folder. So I click on the choose file button and I look up my first image. Let's just use that one. I click on open and I click on upload. Now we have effectively added our first image into our bowling images folder. And as you can see, this image is only 101 kilobytes in file size, so it is quite small. Let's go to the next one. We choose another file. We can click on that, bowl close-up image, our image we're going to upload. So I click on open and I add it, and we'll add some 2 or 3 more. There we have an image called bowls scattered, large, whatever that means. Choose another, go lawn bowl, choose another, lawn bowls, okay. So there we have 5 images that we loaded, and I think we will stick with that for the moment. Of course, you can have any amount of images in any one album. Right, so the next step, step number 4, would be to create our album. And what is important to bear in mind now is that folder name, bowling images, and we have to make sure that we pay attention to the capitalization of that, and the B and the I are in capitals, the rest of them are all lowercase. That is important. Good. So to create an album, we now move on to create an article, which will give us this input screen. First thing we do is we give our album a name, and we're going to call this bowling images. And in this case, you can see I use 2 words because that will just be a name for our album. And then here in the main content area of our editor, we type in the following information. You start with a curly bracket, then you type in gallery in lowercase letters, and you close with a curly bracket. The next thing we type in there would be our folder name. This is important. It's got to be our folder name. But if you remember correctly, our folder name is gallery and then / bowling images. This is the first folder that we created. The second folder would be bowling images. Right, and the next thing we do is we open a curly bracket, type a / and then gallery again. So just to explain, this means open the gallery, then use the images in that subfolder of gallery, and then close the gallery. Right, the next thing we do is we go into the publishing tab, and in the publishing tab, of course, we have to find the gallery category. That will determine on which page the albums will appear. And that is basically all. So if we now click on save, we hopefully have made an album. Right, our article is now successfully submitted. If we go to the gallery page, we find that our bowling images album has been created, and there are our 5 images. If we now just click on any one of these images, you will see that it opens up. If we click on that little X, we close the image, or we click just off the image, we close it. If we click on that image, or we could click there and move on to the next image. Click there, move on to the next image, and click there and move on to the next image. But what you have noticed, if I just open that image, is that our images have no captions, no descriptions whatsoever. We can create these descriptions if we want to, but I will reserve that in another short video which I will make to follow this one up. And if we want to create another album, we simply go through all those steps again, and there they are. We simply go through the steps of preparing our images, creating an image folder, and of course the next folder need to be a different folder name for a different album. Then we upload our images into the album folder. Then we create our album by creating an article, and we of course link it to the gallery category as shown there. Then we will be presented with thumbnails, which is what you see there. And that is all for this video. So watch out for the next video to show you how to create captions for your images. Thank you for watching.